Bonjour, peeps. That's Potawatomi for hello, peeps. Every time I say that word peeps and I think about you guys, I just smile because you're my peoples, right? Place we can come and hang out together for a little while and have some interesting conversation with a card draw and all the other shows that we do here at Star Nations. So welcome to Star Nations organization's main fan page. And this is the card draw live stream. I used to say morning card draw, but sometimes it's in the afternoon. And it is Wednesday, September 5th. August is like past 5 days, right? We're into September 5 days. Wow. Hey, Mary Ellen, good morning to you. And welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me. I realized something as I was going to sleep last night. Finally got into bed and George was asleep and everything was calm. And I remembered that yesterday, September 4th, was the day, it would have been at 2 o'clock, I think it was 2:12 or something like that my dad walked on. And I have to say that yesterday was the first time in 7 years, I guess it's 8 years now, that I didn't remember that in the afternoon. That I didn't think about those last hours that he was with us, Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. I had to lay there for a little bit and ponder that one. So I guess I don't know if that's really a indicator, a sign, that the grief over his passing, over his walking on, has reached a place of balance. Doesn't mean I don't miss him, but the intense feelings aren't there. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh, Mary Ellen, I know. Loved seeing George last night. Yeah, he's quite a character. I thought first he was going to be camera shy, but not last night. It wasn't. So thank you for that. And she says, Paula is so cute with him too. I know. He's always been that way with all of our dogs. He is the one who takes on the, getting them out to go to the bathroom, especially at night. He's the one who actually gets them to do the first walks on the leash. And in the old days, he's the one who would go take them running to get their energy out, and yeah. So yeah, we love dogs. Always have. Mary Ellen saying, I had the same experience with my parents passing too. Yeah, and I have to say that did it shock me? No, it was kind of like, hey, I didn't remember in the afternoon, usually right around the exact time, and then my thoughts would normally go to those last hours, those last days, that kind of thing, because I was the one that was doing most of the caregiving then too. He was in a nursing home though. He was in a veterans nursing home here in Wisconsin called King, and so his medical needs were so great that there's no way I could keep him here. So that's why he ended up in a nursing home. And yeah, we actually talked about that, Mervin and I, on one of our first specials on caregiving for elderly parents, and why we have our moms in our homes and why they're not in a nursing home, And so, so last night, just, when I was just not even falling asleep, and when I realized it, it's like, oh my goodness. So for me, that's an indicator. It's a sign that intense grief has passed, and I didn't even get a huge emotional charge out of the memories of those last days, those last hours. And I have to say, Mom didn't even really talk about it at all. She talked about Dad this morning, and it wasn't so much about his passing. It was more about what he'd be saying about what's going on in the government. Yeah, and he would have been very outspoken about it, and so that's what she was talking about. So funny. So this morning's card draw, I think you guys are going to like it. Because we see a lot written about this one on social memes and that kind of thing. And you hear it in classes many times. And this is the card that came. And for those that might just be joining us, we switched cards. We went through the sacred geometry cards, finished those up last week. And I grabbed this deck that I have. It's called Pathway to Healing Cards by Brian L. Weiss, MD. It was published in 2004, and it's a companion to his book, Same Soul, Many Bodies. And I like him as an author, and he was probably the first medically trained doctor that I've read that really understands the spiritual path, other than Deepak, of course. But Brian Weiss is a little bit different because he is a trained medical doctor, a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, and a hypnotherapist. And so that's where his formal training lies. And what he noticed in the clients that he was seeing is that when they would do the hypnosis, they would start talking about things that weren't even going on in their current life, but they were referring to things that had occurred in a past life. And realizing that some of the illnesses, the imbalances that were occurring in this life actually began in a past life. And then he had a client, a woman, who he was doing the transgression, going backwards into their soul's existence. And this particular patient actually started talking about things that hadn't occurred yet, future lives and the possibilities. And that's when Dr. Weiss began his work in progression. And so the cards that he developed are really related to the present moment. That the healing that we do in the present life affects our past life in healing and all our ancestors, right? But it also impacts any of our soul's future lives. Okay. And if you believe holographically, time is spherical. And so everything is happening right now. There is no past, there is no future. Everything's happening now. And our soul's experience in different lives are parallel to this one. So like the dimension right next door, so to speak. Yeah, it puts a whole different spin on things. Makes you go, wonder what that's about, or how could that be? So the card that came today is this one. I can't read it. I believe in love, not fear. I believe in love, not fear. He says that fear is what closes minds. Love is what opens hearts and dissolves fear. Okay? Fear is what closes minds. Love is what opens the heart and dissolves fear. Now, this is the part of what I was saying, that we've heard this before. We've heard that that love not fear. Love wins. Where love resides, fear cannot exist. You know, we've heard many, many ways that it's been said to us. And so with this one, what I put it in the context of his work, Dr. Weiss's work. And so the fears that we may have in this current life come from many different directions, right? Sometimes it's fears that our parents had, and they instill them in us through learning, a learned trait, right? And I always, my mom is really afraid of snakes. And so we, her kids, grew up with the same startle response, right? She taught that to us. Now, as an adult, I don't have the startle response the way that she does. Many times it's because, you didn't see them there and then they move and then you get startled. But the fear factor isn't as great. All right. And also our fear can come from, of course, experiences that we've had, like maybe if you're in a car accident, or maybe you fell, so we get feared that way. But there's also fears that are unexplained in the current life. It's like fear of heights, fear of water, fear of bridges, those kinds of fears. It's like you can't put your finger on one possible incident that led to that particular fear. And so what Dr. Weiss was doing with the hypnosis was transgressing people, his patients, back to where, hey, Cindy Lynn, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. He was transgressing his people, his patients, back to the point of origin of certain fears, certain illnesses, and that kind of thing, okay? And what he found was that many times the illness or the imbalance that was occurring in the present life started in a past life. And so I was thinking about this card. I believe in love, not fear. And the backside says, fear is what closes minds. Love is what opens hearts and dissolves fears. Right? And so I was thinking about what the card was about. And and I was thinking that when we're doing our healing work, many times we reach into the past as well, right? To heal something that happened in the past, such as use of our gifts. There could have been a past life where we were persecuted for being a witch or called a witch. We could have been innocent in that, obviously. A lot of women were innocent, and yet they were either burned, hung, or drowned, right? And so when we heal that from a past life, in the present life, that fear goes away, or at least subsides, and we can actually start using our intuition and changing our belief systems that supports our gifts, right? So I understood that. And I thought that can go pretty darn deep. Yeah. Thinking about how love, to believe in love and not fear. To believe in love. And so my next thought, it was a very interesting moment. I know Cindy's got an emoticon like, this contemplation was happening while George was. I was sitting on the floor with him because he was just overtired again this morning, and he does that. And so he was winding down, literally, and trying to get him to go to sleep. And and I was thinking about this is when we feel fear, when we have that emotion present with us, where do we feel it most often? Where do we feel it most often? You know, because it starts with a thought, right? And it happens lightning fast. It starts with a thought, and this is me, okay? It starts with a thought, and then I tense up. And when I tense up, usually what happens is that my diaphragm, my stomach muscles, they, we get tight. And you can kind of sometimes feel your stomach have some physical stuff going on, right? The rolling, the nausea, that kind of thing. So where we feel fear in our body, right? I think that is a good way to be able to really bring your self-awareness to the present moment, and really recognize, all right, I'm feeling the fear, whatever it is, whatever caused it, but where am I feeling it in my body? And get to know that piece, because you can head it off at the pass when you start your body going into that mode, okay? But the flip side of that is also, where do you feel love? Where do you feel love? And I have to say that I'm very interested in those that are in the live chat. If you can kind of share a little bit about how you feel about it, it's very interesting. Cindy Lynn saying in my stomach and then spreads all over. Yeah. And so when you say the same, are you also saying that love feels the same way, that it starts in your stomach and spreads all over? Yeah. See, when I stop to say, okay, when I feel love and I bring somebody or something that I love to me, that thought, that image, and it wasn't a thought, really. What came to me was the image. And where I felt my expansion was in my heart, the expansion. Not the tightness, but the expansion. Yeah. And so I was thinking, so truly, it can be the opposite, because when you think about love and you go to its opposite, is antonym. That's an old word, antonym. What's the opposite of love? Fear, right? And so when you want to replace fear, you should be replacing it with love, because it's the polar opposite. Cindy says, I meant same as you. Okay, thank you. But also causes me severe pain, double over in pain, always has since I was little, living in the toxic environment growing up. Okay, so that fear could have started from your family life, from your home life, right? And so what you're healing is that inner child, to feel safe and to feel loved and nurtured. I hear Polly Joe in my head. And so if we had a fear that we really didn't understand, where did it start? Why do I have this? Where did it come from? It could have come from a past life, right? And we can still heal that. We can still heal that. So, and there's many, many ways we can do that, right? But let's put a frame around this too, because Brian Weiss's work, his hypnosis would transgress people back to a past life, but his work also progresses people to a future life. So if we have a fear that originated in this lifetime, and we can get to the root of it, right? And we can clear it, heal it, clear it. And if you think about Akashic record point of view, we can clear the trauma and drama out of the life lesson that might have surrounded this fear, keeping the life lesson and clearing the rest of it, right? So that when our soul incarnates again, if we get that opportunity, that we don't have to carry this into the next lifetime to heal, because we've already done the work. It can get a little convoluted, I think, but it actually made me feel like that's why it's so important for us to do our healing work. You know, we know that, we talk about it, but putting it in this framework, I think it really helps us to understand the importance of our healing work now. We're not only healing our past life self, but we're also healing our ancestors, right? I think the other day I said we were disruptors. We disrupt a certain genetic cycle, a certain ancestral cycle within our DNA, right? Historical trauma stuff. But we also heal our descendants when we do that. So why not look at items that occurred here in this lifetime and to heal those, so that when we get to the opportunity to have another reincarnated life, that we're not bringing that stuff with us. We can actually pack it up and clear it out. Clutter clearing, right? Right. Cindy Lynn saying, I love, I feel in my chest. Yeah, yeah. You know, that heart chakra. And in the fear, when we think about where in our bodies do we feel the fear, both of us, Cindy Lynn, were saying that, you know, it begins with the thought, the head, and then mine goes directly to my stomach and my diaphragm area. That's our willpower, right? Our third chakra. And so if you listen to Polly Joe's shows, and she's, especially the ones where she talks about the third chakra, and to know that that's where we get triggered, you know, what is it about our will that brings us into the fear? You know, loss of choice, maybe freedom, you know, our willpower, handing somebody over our power, being disempowered. We get all kinds of things there. But I'm sure that there's more, because I'm not an expert on our chakras, that's for sure. I know enough to understand it, but the nuances of it to make it really deep, you know, we go to the other experts for that. And Cindy Lynn saying, oh yeah, past and present stuff releasing and trying to heal all at once lately. It's also causing crazy, stressful, and emotional dreams. Yeah, yeah. I can understand that. The dreams, depending on what kind of dreams you're having, sleep time dreams, you know, that's a time for us to be able to work out, to work through the emotions that we may have disregarded, ignored, repressed, suppressed during the waking hours, right? Yeah, so our mental mind literally is asleep, and our emotional body comes to the surface freely in our dreams, and we get an opportunity to work through those during dream time, or sleep time, I should say. Sleep time helps us to understand them a little bit. So if Cindy Lynn, do you journal your dreams? Do you journal? Um, you know what I forgot to ask is for people to share. I wish I would remember that now that we're more than halfway through the live stream. The the journaling of all dreams helps us to understand, and we can start seeing patterns forming, right? When we look at it from a higher perspective, a holistic perspective, those sleep time dreams really help us to work through those emotions. Um, Dream time dreams, those ones where our soul does the traveling while we're asleep. Um, yeah, if those are the ones that are bringing you those stress and emotional dreams, um, talk to your spiritual team and get some clarity about it. What's really going on here, right? Um, why am I so emotional about this particular dream or this particular vision actually? And so tapping them and having them help you to understand those dream time dreams where your soul is traveling. um, yeah, they can also help you understand the sleep time dreams too, but they're totally different dreams though, totally different experiences. Yeah, and I'd be more if you're doing the dreamtime dream and you were doing the stressing and the emotional stuff. Um, yeah, I'd be a little bit more concerned about that one. Um, to be able to get some help in understanding what those are about. Because sometimes they're prophetic in nature, right? Yeah, oh good. Cindy Lynn says she does journal her dreams. She says I usually can remember most and take time to process it. Yeah. Yep. And it's in the understanding of it. And and for me it's also about the emotional piece. What was the emotion? Could I see what I was emotional about in that dream, in that sleep time dream? Um, what was going on around it, right? Yeah. Especially if they're stressful. Can't be getting very good restful sleep at that point, huh? Because when we're dreaming, we're usually in REM sleep, and that's the most restful sleep for us. Yeah. Uh, Lots going on. I think it's kind of fascinating, though, don't you? How our body, in its entirety, not just the physical body, but all of our bodies, how they work together and how we get the information somehow comes through the dreams, wake time, dream time. I think it's fascinating. Maybe that's why I was a psychology major in college. All right, I'm going to actually do this a little late, but I'm going to share it to my timeline. And right now, explanation. All right. So for those who might be joining us a little bit later, this is the card that came. It says, I believe in love, not fear. And the flip side is, fear is what closes minds, love is what opens the heart and dissolves fear. Dissolves fear. This is just one card. There were so many things that came to mind. And also came to mind was how the heart, how he puts this is that fear is what closes the mind and love is what opens the heart. And we'll talk about indicators, right? That in our heart in our heart, our sacred heart, in our tiny space of our heart, there is no fear. It doesn't exist there because only love exists there. And so when we have fear, that is an indicator that we're not living our life from our hearts. When we have fear, because fear is actually generated by the mind. Yep. That's why I was asking, where do you feel fear in your bodies? Mary Ellen says her Facebook crashed by her. Well, you know what? Down at my house, my internet's not quite working either. Paul moved the modem, and when he moved the modem, something happened, and so I don't have the internet down there. And he's trying to get it fixed before he goes to work this afternoon, before lunchtime. And yeah, because I have a magazine I have to work on this afternoon. If I don't have the internet, that could be a problem. I'd have to come up here to work. So, we'd figure it out, but still, it kind of throws a monkey in the wrench, or a wrench in the monkey. I don't remember. Fly in the ointment. Yeah. Cindy Lynn saying, nope, no restful sleep in a long time between the dreams and my health conditions. But yes, it's fascinating to a degree. Yeah, it is. And to be able to get out of your head. And it's not that we don't need our mind or our ego or any of that. We do. We just need it in balance. So in our hearts, fear doesn't reside there. And so when you're a light worker, a healer, an energy worker, and you're doing space clearing, right? Making a space sacred. One of the axioms in space clearing is to go in fearless. And when I was teaching certification courses for space clearing, and we'd get to this part, what we would talk about is fear and what we just did. Where do you feel it in your body? And I said, when we say we go in fearless, that means that we're going in with an immense amount of love. We're going in with our heart. That's what that means. That when you step into a space to do that space clearing, that the homeowners has made the conscious decision to turn the stewardship of the space, energetic space, over to the space clearer. That's huge energy shift. And to go in with an immense amount of love helps shift the energy just by stepping in the door without doing anything other than just being in your heart and coming in with an immense amount of love, because fear can't reside there. Yeah. Now, can you tell I had a very philosophical morning? Mary Ellen saying, did you ever ponder this, afraid of everything and nothing? Yeah, that sounds very Asian, very Chinese, kind of Confucius, right? Or Osho, Japanese. Afraid of everything and fear nothing. I think that's how that goes. Afraid of everything, fear nothing. Yeah. And most of those, some of those quotes came during, it was a feudalistic time frame. And so life was very tenuous at best. Lifespans were not very long because of the wars and feudal wars. In other words, it was kind of like a civil war, right? Between feudal lords and that kind of thing. And so if you're living during a wartime, can you imagine during a wartime? and you're hyper vigilant. You're looking for something that is unsafe all the time, all the time. Yeah. So, wow. If you're afraid of everything, you're hyper vigilant, hyper vigilant. Um, and yet you fear nothing. And why is that? Sometimes, what is there is a rating about fears, and I think the number one fear is death, right? Another one is public speaking. Public speaking. But as energy healers, how we have a relationship with spirit, with our spiritual team, with spirit in general, we see the world differently than a lot of people do. And I suppose when we're doing our healing work, because we all know how important that is, when we're doing our healing work, and and our mental mind understands it from another perspective, that the release gets easier to do, and the integration is sometimes quicker, meaning that there's not that much that's different in the integration, right? And we become more and more whole, or more and more attuned to our original frequency, right? And truly living from our hearts, truly living from our hearts. And so to be fearless, to me, is to be to live in your heart, to have an immense amount of love. And we're all kind of walking in that direction, aren't we? Yeah. Mary Ellen said the absolute value of fear is nothing. Another deep contemplation to ponder. The absolute value of fear is nothing. But then you have to understand what nothing is. What's the definition of nothing? What is that? So you can understand why I went into psychology, because psychology is a branch of philosophy. When the ancestral thinkers, they did something like what the church did, really. The church, religion, and science split, right? And philosophy and psychology did the same thing. They split. They took two different paths, because each school was actually working toward the same thing, but taking different routes, different paths. And so at the time, psychology and philosophy were seen as an art form. I wasn't seen as a science. Whereas when they did the split, psychology took on the scientific cloak, and the philosophy took on the art the art of philosophy kind of cloak. Yeah. So we can go down the rabbit hole, right? We can go down the rabbit hole. The little math language, undefined. Yeah. And that's the scientific, right? That's a scientific perspective. And I think that the more perspectives that we can become acquainted with, to take in, to listen to, what it is, if we're talking about fear and if we're talking about love, we can see it from many different directions. And come to a better understanding of it individually. That's what I think. Didn't we had a card like that when we were doing the Sacred Path cards, that every voice has value, that everyone in the clan, in the family, in the tribe, in the nation, their voice is equal and has value. So even though their opinion or what they're talking about may be in direct opposition to what you feel or think, that they have every right to be able to express that when they come to a council. And so the point of view is listened to. You still might not agree with it, but at least you're listening to it from a different direction, from another perspective, right? And it's possible that somewhere down the line that things are going to, around that topic, is going to shift and change a bit until you get to a balance point. And so isn't that what we're striving for most times, is balance? Yeah. Hey, I think we achieved what the energy is all about today. Yeah, I think we did. I believe in love, not fear. And I do. I do. I do believe in love. But love is expansive. Fear is constricting. Expansion feels so much better. Constriction, of course, doesn't. It feels uncomfortable, feels tight, close, claustrophobic even. Claustrophobic. Um, Mary Ellen is saying yes and that she agrees. And Cindy says, yes, we did. I believe we did. I think we can say that we looked at this from a couple of different directions, different perspectives. And how we see our personal healing work, I think this puts another layer of understanding to our own individual healing, and the time and effort, the energy that we put into it, has a huge effect on our lives, plural, all of our lives. So, hey. So, today, Wednesday, at 7 p.m. Eastern, is Polly Joe's hour and a half of divine healing and messages called Soul Connections. So if you are a light worker, an energy worker, and you haven't done your self-care very often, and this is a good time. This is a time that you can actually come and join us in the chat. And what Polly Joe does is she creates this sacred space and holds that container for us of the sacred space, and helps our individual spiritual teams to release and to heal aspects, because what we're doing individually is working with our spiritual teams on whatever intention it is that you want to work on. So if it's another layer of healing around the heart, if it's a healing around forgiveness, if it's a healing around anything that's an interference to the use of your gifts at 100%, that's your intention. And so that's what gets worked on individually during that time frame. Now, the divine messages is that she pulls a card for whoever wants a card from a deck and does it's a mini reading, I guess you could call it. And so she taps into information that you may need on your healing path. So, yeah, I'll be there. I'll be in the chat. Yeah, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and doing whatever it is you're doing today, enjoy it. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for tomorrow's card draw. See, tomorrow's Thursday, right? The 6th. We're having some maintenance done up here at the Academy. We have in-floor heat. And so they're coming to do a checkup on the pressure tank, and also the tank that heats the water, right? Just the annual checkup kind of thing. and check the levels and that kind of stuff. And guess when they're doing that? They're doing that at 9 o'clock in the morning. That was the only time frame they could come and do it. So if they get done early, we'll be doing the broadcast at our usual time at 10 a.m. Central. If they say that it's going to take an hour or more, I'm going to do the card draw in the afternoon at 2 Central, 3 Eastern. Okay. So, but I'll remind you guys. I'll send out the reminder in the morning, but we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, Bama Mina. Until we see each other again. Love you guys.